We are existing. Yeah. It is finally time for the big boy project. And I forgot my glasses, so I have to squint really hard to read chat. But that's okay. Now, if we use our eyeballs, I was smart and actually prepared before stream today. And you will see that there are two characters down in the bottom of the corner. In the bottom of the corner. In the corner of the screen. Right on down over here. And you will see that we are in fact making two separate characters. So that's our big boy project, is we are doing a set of twin suits. They are distinctly different from each other, but they will have the exact same face shape and the exact same patterns, just with a slightly altered color palette. And I guess technically a slightly altered pattern in some spots, like you can see the neckline is slightly different between the two of them, but overall it's the same pattern. And we've got a lot of fun features we're going to do in these guys, because I am going to do the hard, tedious task of learning how the fuck to put really cool LEDs into shit. But that's Future Me's problem. We also have a couple other ideas. I'm going to try doing some silicone wagger tails. I don't know if that's going to work out, but we're going to try. So, you know, it's where we're at today. Now, just because I'm me, I do actually want to pull up... Get out of here, OBS. Get out of here, Camo. I want to pull up the photo. Zoom. Because... So they're going to have relatively narrow muzzles, which is probably about 2 inches. But we don't want the face to be narrow as well. We actually kind of want it a little bit wider based on the reference sheet. So, like it's not super wide. We're not going for like the widest head on earth, so we don't need to do a 1/2 inch here. But I could do a full inch and a full inch on each side, and then do the muzzles. So I think that's what we're going to do, rather than... Well, no, I could actually... So we do this, and then if we do... This is 3 inches. No, I would do at least full on the widths. So we're going to do full all the way around. Because if I do half, that's going to make the face a little bit too narrow, I think, for what we're going for. Because ultimately this will set up the base of the face shape. And then we're going to make a duplicate piece for the other headband. Now this is going to be tedious. This is probably going to take me a few days to actually get these done, because I do have to do it all twice over. And if I mess up anything, that means I have to fix it twice. Which is going to suck. Hot. Shit. See, and already we're messing up, because I forgot that I actually need to wrap the headbands. So we're going to do that first. Getting ahead of myself, guys. I'm just so damn excited. And I am going to wrap them in slightly different shades of blue. Because blue is obviously their color, right? Like, that's what we're going with, is the blue palette for that pop of color. But one is a lighter color palette, and one's a darker color palette. So in order to help me differentiate as I'm building them, I'm going to give them different colored headbands. This will get covered up once when it's lined anyway, but you know, meh. I am also going to, because this guy's still a little warm. him hang out for a little bit longer on top of the head, so that way he holds his shape. This guy we can... Which one were you? Oh, God. See, already I'm getting lost. Very important to keep track of your... This one's longer. This one's not. Okay. This one is the bigger one, which is going to be the lighter color palette. So the smaller one's going to be the darker color palette. And honestly, I don't care if we use the raw edging here. And I do want to try also as a new thing for my suits. Normally I wrap the fleece around once. And depending on the fleece, this is enough, and sometimes it's not. You know, it depends on the suit. Yucky. Get out of here. That was some yucky hot glue. This hot glue gun getting really old. It's about time we switch over to the new one almost. Honestly though, I'm going to use this hot glue gun until it dies on me. Like, this is the best $5 I ever spent, and I spent it like 4 years ago. Same hot glue gun's like 15 bucks now. Stupid. So what I'm going to do, because the issue I have Patch, right? And he's overall pretty comfortable to wear, but I do get very itchy when I wear him, because you can feel, sometimes through the fleece, you can still feel the headband. Although this feels thick enough, so it might have just been whatever I used for his headband. Because this feels fine. Like, I am not complaining. We'll see. We'll see as I finish gluing it. I might do a second wraparound with the fleece to make it thicker and more cushioned, which will make it more comfortable. Because that's really the only part that is uncomfortable about his head, is occasionally I get very itchy on the brow line where the headband sits. Which that I feel like is going to happen anyway, just because sweat buildup, you know, makes you break out a little bit. But let's face it, when you're suiting, that's not the only part of you that's sweating, so there's other fish to fry. And then I think, too, this is some of the good old Joann's fleece. Good times, good times. I think this was actually... I think I bought this color as a remnant. Because I kept buying the wrong shades of blue. Like, I bought like 5 or 6 different shades of blue once, and none of them were the correct shade of blue somehow. And finally I sucked it up and brought in a swatch with me to color match. Because I didn't think I was that bad at color matching, goddamn. But you know, it's blue. Everybody uses blue, so it worked. It was fine. Oh, God, the glare from the sun. Hold on. My window faces the sunset, so there really is no winning in the afternoons as far as streaming goes, because I can't exactly put the camera on this side of me for obvious reasons. It won't capture things, and I can't sit far enough away for it to capture from here. It's too far down. Too much of an angle. If I wanted to do an over-the-top capture, I could, but that's kind of weird for fursuits, you know? Like, meh. So, oh well. This is what we're going with. We'll live. It just means I have to close the window, close the curtains, when I stream in the afternoons. We don't want to cut the elastic, that's kind of important. And then I'm just going to, for my sake. Oh yeah. I know this looks ridiculous, but I just want to make sure it's comfy on my noggin, and that is actually, oh, that's hot glue is what that is. Yeah, it's actually really comfy. Oftentimes the issue I run into is the fleece will kind of around the foam, and it'll kind of bunch, and that makes it uncomfy, which is not great. So yeah, that's cool. That's dope. Alright, get it out of here. So then I don't need to worry about that then. These are not a commission, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. These are just a personal project for me. It's something I've been wanting to do for a hot minute. Just because I thought it would be really cool, and like, I like the designs. You know, it was one of those things where originally I was designing it as a pre-made, as one does, and then I decided, that's mine now. I want to do that for me. I got jealous of the people who never claimed it, so it is now mine forever and always. And we are going to make a set of twin suits. And my goal is to have these done in time for MCFC. Will I? Debatable. But, you know, one can dream. Don't crush my dreams, that's just rude. We are not going to be using fleece for any other part of the suit except for maybe the tongues, but I have a feeling I want to show you guys what I've got, because this is something I've been working on for a while. So I bought 4 or 5 different kinds of fabric. I bought multiple swatches. I purchased a few different kinds of fabrics before I finally... Oh, that's stinky! That is, yucky, stinky fabric. I'm going to have to wash this before I actually use it. It smells like a fishy warehouse. Yuck. But I found this really pretty metallic vinyl, and it doesn't look great in here because there's not a lot of light in here, but put that stuff under the sun and it's shimmery. I do want to do some tests. I bought 2 full yards, so we have plenty. I do want to do some tests on the embroidery machine to see if we can get that triangle pattern that is common in the game. But I don't know how well non-metallic thread is going to look on that, because I did also debate getting some metallic threads and a top stitch needle for the embroidery machine and trying to do some metallic embroidery. But that's a whole other can of worms that I'm not ready for yet, mentally nor physically. So, for now, headbands. Which I made that a little bit snug on me, but that's fine. Once when it gets an actual fursuit head on it, that's going to be a nice fit. Plus headbands, the elastic tends to stretch out over time, especially with wear and wash and all that stuff. All that good cloth. Like, see this fleece, I feel like is not as fat. It's not as dummy thick. So it's going to soften up and it's going to wear down over time. Stretch out. Which is why we do the long strips of Velcro, because then you can tighten it as you like. And that is something that I've also changed over the years. I used to do 2 different sizes, and then it became a thing of, well, now I have too much hooks and not enough loops, you know, for my hook and loop tape. So now we just do them both the same size, which gives you a larger area of overlap, as well as not pissing me off when I have to buy more of it, so it works out. Although I do still use some of the excess hooks for doing the removable eyelids, because those are Velcro. So really, it just depends, you know, depends on what I'm using and how I'm using it. Usually I use sticky Velcro for removable eyelids, which I don't think I'm going to do on these suits. This guy might get. This is thin compared to the other stuff that's on this headband. I'm realizing I also look ridiculous, but we're not going to worry about it. I don't think I'm doing removable eyelids for these suits. Because I planned out what the extras were going to be forever ago because of what we personally prefer. We are going to do built-in shoes. I already purchased those. The electronics, we're going to do fingerscapes. I want a squeaker in my hand paw. He does not. So one of the suits will have a squeaker in the hand paws. We are going to do removable eyelids and head zippers. Very important. I already bought the head zippers too. And then we're going to try doing ear vents, which is not something I do often, but it's also not something that's particularly difficult to do. So we're going to figure that out. We probably won't get a whole lot of room for vents in our ears, but we're going to try. Because odds are what's going to happen is I'm essentially going to carve a hole into the head after I build it, because a lot of times there's only a small gap where I initially do stuff and things. This did not glue down very nice. Oh well. That's the front side, we don't care about that. Getting a headache, pressure headache, good lord. This is just being silly for no reason. There we go. Yeah. Things also worked out really nicely because it is November, which is technically when the timeline of the game starts, although we are a little bit early for it. But you know, it's going to take us a while to get these done in time for February. So, it is also extremely convenient, and none of this was planned, mind you. This was not intentional at all. I just knew that I wanted to make these suits well before they announced the new hotel for MCFC. And it was just really convenient that after I'd already started planning for this, that they moved the hotel to the Renaissance Center. So it'll be very exciting to take these suits to the con in Detroit, which is honestly kind of dope. We went down there recently for a anime convention, which was fun. We went down there to vend, not to actually hang out and do con stuff so much as just work, but it was still pretty fun. We probably won't vend there again just because we didn't do well. Normally we sell pretty good at anime and Comic-Cons. But for whatever reason, we just did not do well at Yuma. And that might have just been the case of a bad year, you know, because we heard that a lot of other people who usually sell their fur stuffs, like the ears and stuff like that, really well, just weren't doing it this year. Like, it just wasn't working. It was pretty consistent across the board. So I think we just got unlucky. We did sell some of our coloring books. Baby Mance is over there laying on the strip of foam, which I'm going to let him do because that's keeping him chill. He's not bugging me. And it's going on my face anyway. I don't care if there's a little bit of poodle fur in it. If it was going on a commission, I'd care a little bit more, and I'd kick him off of it. But I have to shave his ass. I get fur from him in my face all the time. Because we don't go to the groomer, we do the grooming at home. We've been to the groomer once or twice for him, but it's expensive. And Unfortunately, with the way things are, we can no longer afford to get him professionally groomed, so he gets funky little haircuts here at home. And we do all his nails and all that other good stuff, so... See, you're vibing. He is due to actually have his nails cut again one of these days, so probably later tonight, even. We'll see. This is comfy. I want to flip it upside down. There we go. Oh yeah, that's a lot better. For some reason that got raised, so we'll just have to make sure that we keep it this direction when we put it on the head. This one I don't think it matters so much either way, so. Yeah, if we just keep it consistent where it's this side is on the bottom, then we're good. I know what to do. The other big thing is just making sure that these do actually line up where they're supposed to before we start gluing other random shit onto our head. There we go. I already put hot glue on this piece, so I'm just I'm just burning myself, that's fine too. I'm just remelting it. Which that way it will soak back into the foam nicely before I add more hot glue to actually glue it onto things. Now my fingy. There we go. And then we know this one's also our center one for the other piece. And then we're going to figure out our side pieces, which, honestly, I'm just going to figure them out for this one first. And then we'll go from there. And we'll do the other head. Because we know this is the center. We're going to let that stay there so we know. Center, center. Side, side. And that's for this head. But then we also need 2 of them for this head, which, whoopsie doodles, we don't have enough foam for that. The ironic part is that most of this right here that I'm working on right now eventually actually gets carved out from the inside. Like most of this, you see how it's like right in front of the nose? Pretty much from here down gets cut off. And then over here, a lot of, like, it gets cut down to about 1/2 inch. Because it's solely there for the support, like, frame of the head base and for the initial setup of the head. So once when we have all of the pieces together and the entire head base is together, it's not as necessary to the function of the head. So I tend to carve them down, because otherwise you have these weird vertical sticks that are kind of rubbing right here in front of your ears, and I don't like that personally. So I carve them off afterwards, as much as I can without, you know, affecting structural integrity. And then by the time you end up lining and furring a fursuit head anyway, that helps also add a lot of structure to the head base. Which makes a huge difference, honestly. And I find that they're pretty durable. I will say I have waterboarded Patch's 2.0 head quite a bit, because we also do the waterproof eye blanks, so I have soaked him in the tub. I get people asking a lot, oh, so can I swim in him? And it's like, well, technically you could get in a pool with him. I do not recommend swimming in any fursuit ever because, oh my goodness, the hazard, the drowning. Waterlogged fursuits are extremely heavy. Like my fursuit heads are originally about 2 to 3 pounds on average. So for people to switch it up and just casually jump in a pool will make that fursuit head easily 10-15 pounds. And the last thing you want is to be waterboarded by your own fursuit. But also because I do such thin fursuit heads overall, for foam at least, because I think like the thickest part of my heads are maybe 2 inches thick. Otherwise, the rest of the head is really only about 1 inch thick. That is structurally fine for foam, but foam that's waterlogged, it does tend to kind of fold and flatten and do things because water weight is pulling it directions. So that puts a lot of strain on the suit itself, as well as making it very awkward to be inside of when super wet. So I don't generally recommend swimming in a wet fursuit. But getting him poolside isn't going to hurt if he gets a little bit of a splash. Great for those poolside photos. The ears hold up pretty well. They kind of tend to try and flop in directions when they get waterlogged like that. But otherwise, they're pretty okay. I definitely recommend doing extra support with the ears if you're going to swim in a suit that has earsies. But I need to go cut another 1-inch strip because I think I just need one more. I don't want to cut 2 and then not need to because that's just a waste of a strip. It's not really a waste because I can always use it later, but... Baby mans, you're on the part of the foam I need to use. Yes, you are. You're a big spoiled baby. Oh, big spoiled baby. Can you get off the phone, please? Yes. Belly rubs, I see. Oh, there you go. Belly rubs. Can you uppies? Yeah, I just need you to uppies real quick. Yeah, just real quick. Come on. Get your butt off my phone, you big baby. Come on. Yeah, hi. Hi. You cannot appease me of this. You need to get off. Hi. Hello. Hello, baby mans. I know. Can I cut my phone now? Thank you. Yeah. You put your right here. Hey, hey. Don't come standing at me while I'm cutting foam with a box cutter. That's how we get slices. Nobody wants to be sliced open today. I'm not a surgeon. Oh, you saying hi to stream? Tell everybody on stream you say hi. Big baby boy, don't burn yourself with the hot glue gun, I swear to God. Nosy baby. See, Bingus is a good girl. Bingus is in her chair. Yeah. As you guys can see, the baby mans is very nosy, and our foam is quite a bit furry at the moment, with various Forest and Bingus hair alike, which is going to be annoying later when I have to go and lint roll this shit, but that's what I get for letting you lay on it. You got bits on you. Yes, you're lucky you're a cutie. Oh, big yawn. Is it cuddle time? Yeah. You even have Bingus all over you. See, Bingus, this is how bad you're shedding. You're turning your brother white. Literally changing colors. Yeah. You just lint rolling all her fur off the floor. You just Swiffering it up with your body. Yeah. I think we need to brush behind your ears again. You're getting a little scrunkly. Alright. I love you. No, I'm done petting you, bud. I am. You need to go lay down. Oh, a big yawn from the baby. Yes, hi. Hello. I'm trying to work, mister. You needy little baby. You needy little baby. Oh, you needy little baby. Oh, big stretch from the needy little baby. Hello. Hello, needy little baby. Needy little baby. Needy little bitty baby. And can you go lay down, please? Fucker? Forrest. Go lay down. Yes, I love you. I do. I do love you so much. Can you go lay down, please? Forrest. No. Go lay down. I'm trying to work, babe. I still love you, but you gotta go lay down. You're gonna choke yourself out of my arm. Go. Go lay down. You're a good boy. Go lay down. Go. Thank you, good boy. You needy little baby. Yes, you're a needy baby too, Bingus. Hello. And then this actually, we got lucky. This is long enough because we don't need 2 of this. We just need ½ an inch, so we can cut this in half and have 2 pieces that are the exact same length, which is perfect. This one was the center. And this is where first making gets boring, because now we're just waiting for hot glue to dry. That's 90% of making a head base. Is just waiting. But honestly, it's not bad. You toss on a TV show in the background and you're golden. Except, it helps if I actually... Great, I gotta peel this off because that wasn't centered. We gotta remelt what's on here so that way when we add more it actually glues nice. There we go. That's better. And now we're back to waiting. And then just because this has a weird tapered end, I'm going to trim off this edge because we don't want that. We don't care for big fat blobby end. I do save most of the foam scraps as I'm making the fursuit head base, because oftentimes when I go to do the eyes, I have little cracks that I have to fill in like around the curves and stuff. So the actual thinner chunks like this work really well for filling those in or covering them up as needed, which is nice. Saves me a lot of work. Hello, baby mans. I don't know if you guys can see him. You can see him a little bit. Just standing there, staring like a creep. don't know. I think I want to bring this in tight. So if we assume this is here, this is... Yeah. We'll bring these in tighter. Yeah. So we want it to be... how long? About this long. So just for future me's sake, to make sure that these actually are the similar structure, if I cut this length now, and make sure that my ends are even, now I can cut the piece in half, and I have two nearly identical pieces to glue down with. And then I know, based on how it sits on the head, I'm going to line this up directly along the underside of the goggles. Because generally what I do, this is my failed print that I use as a sample for patterning on my blanks. Generally my eye blanks fit about the size of there. So if I put a line here, I know that's where the bottom of my eye blanks are going to sit in the future. Which just makes things easier for me, honestly, you know, like just makes things a little bit simpler. So now, I'm going to trim this tapered end, because, again, I'm not a fan of it doing that. There we go. Can make about a 1-inch square glue. I'm going to try to glue that nicely. Not that you guys can see, but I'll do the same thing on this side later. Because I don't know that I really want to bring them in tight, or if I just want to leave it like this, if we adjust this so it's more centered. Because this is giving it a slight taper on the frame. So our head will be a bit more vertical. Because I do think we're going to need a little bit of cheekage for these guys, just because of their head shape. So they will get a slight cheekage going on here. I think this is good, yeah, because you can go like that. A little bit of cheek. Yeah, we don't want to taper this in, because we want these guys to be very that shape. And that'll make life easier for me in the future anyway, because I already cut these pieces in half. And then I'd have to measure twice, cut multiple times. Again, we're keeping it parallel with the bottom of the goggles on the wraparound. Usually, if I can, brain hole, I'll connect the cheek pieces, the sides of the head. It'll definitely get connected up here, it'll get glued here, and then if I'm able to make it do so, it also gets glued down here. But these are pretty short, so they honestly are probably just going to get cut off later, and it will support from here up as like a framework for the head. And like I said, all of this part that's directly in front of the face gets cut off later, because we don't want that. It'd be like breathing. Breathing's kind of important. But just for current sake, put a little dot of glue there to hold that. And this is also how I figure out my patterns for the muzzles. Because like on the photo, their muzzles do sit a little bit below. I am trying to get a very canine muzzle. A lot of my muzzles tend to be very, which I'm not a fan of. We're trying to get back into that gentle slope without blocking. Because that's the hard part, right? Is we want really good vision. So if you put something in front of in between the eyes, it blocks a little bit, and the further ahead you put it, the larger that vision block is, right? Because I can't see this side of the hand out of this eye, and I can't see this side out of this eye. So the further ahead you put that muzzle, it's 4 inches wide. So even if you taper it out and stuff, eventually you're going to have some sort of blocking, and you're not going to be able to see as well. Which for some people is more of a concern than others. I personally like being able to see as much as I can. But I also want the muzzle... I want it to look as close to the reference sheet as possible. And I really am going for a kind of German Shepherd, is what we ended up doing, because German Shepherds are frequently used in both police and military work, which, if you know anything about the Detroit Become Human canon, Connor is a police android, whereas Connor the RK-900 is a military android. So I wanted something that worked in both fields, but also their color palettes kind of make me think of sables, which there are German Shepherds that come in a more gray tone. So it really is just kind of giving German Shepherd all around. Aside from, of course, their patterns and the electronics that's going to go in them. So I like to headcanon that, at least for these suits, because I do consider these suits, while based on Connor, the RK-800 and the RK-900 from Detroit Become Human, I do consider them separate, you know, like physically so, not just, oh, it's Connor if he was a furry. It's more the RK-900 adjacent series if they were furry robots, if that makes sense. So we are trying to come up with different names for these characters that isn't Connor. Connor the furry bot. Because I think that would be nice. Because like, I know fandom calls RK-900 9s quite a bit. But I also consider this version of the RK-900 separate from 9s. In the way that, like, all of the Tracy models are separate from each other despite being the same model, you know? If that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, because I'm rambling on about random crap. But that also means that I kind of wanted to come up with their own model number, right? Because technically, if they aren't the RK-800 and they aren't the RK-900, odds are they aren't RK models at all, right? And I kind of still want to keep the 800-900, because duh. So I am considering, because there is the Bear, the the URS model, which is the only model in the game that is shown with 3 letters as far as I know, which may or may not be canon to animal androids in particular. It's hard to find information on, honestly. I am a big fan of the little Aibo dogs, specifically the early models, like the ones from the 90s and the 2000s that are silver and black only. Those are my favorite iterations. I'm not a big fan of the modern iterations of the Aibos. They're still really cool, don't get me wrong, but I really love the way that the classic Aibos looked, and I was recently looking into the history, and the model naming system is extremely similar. They are the ERS models, and they have different numbers and stuff. So like there's the ERS 110, the ERS 111, and I was like, what if, because they don't have an 800 or a 900, if we gave them the ERS tag as 800 and 900, right? So there'd be ERS 800, ERS 900, and that would be these models, the furry versions of the RK800 and RK900, which I think would be cute. I think that's just a little detail that I personally like. But a model number is not necessarily a name, you know. So we're still working on what we'd actually name them, aside from Connor. Cause, oh, is it our dinner time? Is that what we're crying about? Can you wait like 5 seconds for this glue to dry and then I'll feed you? You know? It is the puppers' dinner time, and they are big hungies. There we go. I think that's solid enough. So, we will be right back. And we are back. Dogs are getting their din-dins. They are happy now. But yeah, this is a project that has been in my brain hole for quite a while. Actually, I'm trying to think. When did I first make? Let me see if the properties... Oh, that's not what I wanted. Properties. Sometime back in April is when I first made the furry designs. When I first made the reference sheets and stuff was back in April. So... several months ago now. But this is a project that I've been thinking about for a hot minute. And of course, it was originally a pre-made, so I didn't think about it too hard at first. I was like, oh, I just know I want to do the LEDs. But now that I've decided to do otherwise and make it a whole thing for myself personally, and I could do whatever I want because it's a personal suit, you know? I'm not limited by other people's preferences, per se. We can do whatever we want with the characters, and we can have fun. We can go ham. Yeah. Did you have a good dinner? Did the baby have a good dinner? Cool. Can you get out of the office? Yes, I love you too. Is it yummy? Yummy food? Yeah. Can you out? No, he's gonna nuzzle my knee now, like a weirdo. Baby mans. Baby mans. Bing, it's not you two. God damn it, dogs. Alright, everybody out. Everybody out. Come on. Go bug your dad for a while. Skedaddle. This is just personally a big project for me. Especially since it's, 2 entire full suits. We are doing full digitigrade suits. Which I have given myself about 3 months to complete in entirety. This is not sticking as well as I would like. How about we fix that? How's this one? Is this one sticking? Oh, that one's also having some issue. Okay. Not nearly as bad, but I still don't want it detaching. So it's like, you know, I get to play with the characters and the vibes and whatnot, because like I want to try to keep them as true to the original personalities as much as I can, but at the same time I am not the character, you know. It's just something I'm doing for fun, because I like the fandom, I like the story, and I like a lot about the characters and the themes of the stories and stuff like that overall. I like the characters and kind of just their personalities, you know, like stuff like that. Like, it's just, I'm a big fan, and I can only make so many suits for so many fandoms, so if I had to make one, this is going to be it, because this is honestly one of my favorites. I have made designs for a couple other fandoms. Dang it, and that popped off now. Why? Why do you do this to me? Upside, we know where we stuck it, so that should be an easy fix. The biggest thing is I don't have space, so I can only have so many suits. But also I'm trying to... Suiting by yourself can be lonely, so having a buddy who matches the same vibes is fun as shit, you know? I'm a sucker for twin suits and stuff like that, because like, you see photos of them online, but like I've never actually seen a set of twin suits in person. I know... Oh goodness, who was it that sold those adorable foxes recently? There were these fox suits that had like these bugged out little eyes, like those little pen toppers that you would squeeze and their eyes would pop out, but it was little foxes and they were all different color palettes. And I'm so sad because they posted a video, they're like, how do I tell him that he didn't sell? And it was just the orange classic fox. And I'm like, no, he was actually my favorite, because he was like the perfect shade of orange and everything. They got bought up really quick, but they're adorable, you know, and seeing them together as a group was really cute. Like, not necessarily as people in suits, but seeing the suits together was really cute and fun, you know, like seeing the Crayola palette suits where it's just a bunch of colors of the same kind of character is fun. There are some drawbacks when you do suits like that and such, but personally, I really... the vibes, you know? So having two suits that are very similar but distinctly different is fun to me, because it's... First off, it's a lot easier to tell who's who. You know, like, I feel like these two designs are distinct enough from each other that you could be like, oh, well, the dark one is this one and the light one is that one. But they're similar enough that you can look at them and you go, oh, those are supposed to be twin suits, you know? And that's really fun to me. So now that we got everybody figured the fuck out, we're gonna work on... This is not sitting centered, or am I just dumb? No, that's sitting centered. I think I just failed to... This piece of foam is just a little off. That's alright. Human error is what makes a fursuit a fursuit versus a mass-produced Spirit Halloween costume. Which, now that I say that out loud, I realize that might come across negatively towards the furries who have bought Spirit Halloween fursuits. That is not my intention. But like, because I know a lot of people who have bought the Spirit Halloween fursuits. And the thing is the people that do put their own creativity into them still, you know, like maybe they don't change the actual design of the suit much, but God be damned if they don't accessorize or, you know, just have fun with it in some way. Like, almost everyone I know has, to some extent, like, distinguished themselves from the mass production. Like, they made it their own, you know? And that's what really adds character, is just putting yourself into the fun of suiting and the character itself, you know, like, you don't really get that with the scam suits from China. So this is pretty much the top of the page anyway. And of course, I'm a dumbass who's doing this in pen, so we're real smart over here if we couldn't tell. And like I said, we're kind of going for German Shepherd here. I don't know how much of that we're actually going to get across. In fact, I'm gonna Google reference an image really quick for their side profile, if I can spell. Perfect. That is a perfect muzzle image. Because yeah, they don't have a very hard stop like some breeds do. It's pretty gentle of a slope over, like, honestly, a German Shepherd slope is straight up a 45-degree angle down their face with their eyeballs in the middle. But we're not doing that because we're not a dog. We are a dog, but we're not a dog, you know? We're trying to... And then as far as nose placement, their nose is very on the front. You know, like... Some dogs have a little bit... Like if I show you this drawing here, the nose is very on the front of the curve. Some dogs, the nose sits higher up on that curve, and it's more at this angle versus this angle. If that makes any sense. I don't know that it does, but... I also think that I might have put this a little too high for what I actually wanted. So we're going to actually shorten that lower jaw a little bit. Yeah, I think that's better. But then I think that might be too long. And we're not too worried about the nose that's on this right now, because that doesn't affect the piece that we're making right now. It's just for the vibes. Just so I can kind of see the vision that I have in my brain hole, because it's totally there and totally not going to drive me insane. Yeah, there we go. So actually I need to snip off about that much. I don't know if I feel like... Well, that's another thing too, is we can trim this off, because this is actually also excess. And that's not bad. That's actually a pretty good length. Although I might take it back just a tidbit more, just because I want to smooth out that taper. Because overall, that's a pretty good length. That might be... I don't know if that's too long or not. Because that's the thing too, is it comes out this far, but then we have the cheeks and stuff are going to come off of it, so it's going to look shorter than it actually is at the end of the day. So now I'm actually going to lop off his nose. Although I think we can do a bit more square than what I originally had for the pattern. because this will allow us to we're also going to curve that upwards because we do want to smile. We do want him to smile a bit, so we have that curve. Which these suits have a bit more of a neutral expression than what I normally do. You can see on the reference sheet they're very, very neutral. Because I feel like that's just kind of the general face expression that they have because they're androids. So we're going for a more neutral expression overall. Although we do still want the open jaw. So we have our lower jaw piece here that we can modify and do whatever we want with. But also, I'm going to put in, and this might not make sense right now, but it will later when we do the inner pieces. I am essentially going to trace a piece like this shape, but it's only going to be the small outline for the inner parts of the jaw because I don't want to have to carve an entire freaking muzzle. I am going to make that a little bit thicker right here though. There we go. That I'm going to then have to, you know, hollow out later. So I'd rather just trace the exact same outline onto the phone. Makes life a lot easier, honestly. And then of course I have to actually make, because we're doing 4-inch wide, because we want them to have a relatively narrow muzzle overall. So we're going to do 4 of the big boys, 2 and 2, and then 4 of the inner boys, 2 and 2. Perfect. And then we'll just kind of go from there. Because German Shepherds, like compared to like Labs or Mastiffs, have pretty narrow muzzle shapes for a working breed dog. Your sporting breeds, your guarding breeds. Whereas your hounds, like your whippets, your sight hounds, tend to have a very, very narrow muzzle. And I think that's like the only time where I would opt for either a narrower muzzle at 3 inches, which is absolutely insanely narrow, or this Sharpie is also dying. I have a habit of getting new Sharpies and then having 80 Sharpies laying around the office in hidden spots. Or just having an extremely long muzzle on a suit, which is more practical in the breathing department, less practical in the physically doing things department. But overall, you'd probably want like a happy medium of both, and you go with a somewhat narrower muzzle and also longer muzzle for those sight hounds, in order to kind of capture the vibes of, say, a Borzoi or a Whippet. But yeah, so I'm going to just tracing the paths that I need. And I should probably unplug the hot glue gun because it's going to start dripping on my desk. Oh, that's not the hot glue gun, that's the fan. I also washed a fursuit yesterday and it is still wet, so we're still working on drying it, unfortunately. This patch is stanky. Stanky boy after the fur hole. But I made the mistake of washing him with his padding in because I was lazy, which means now it's taking extra long to dry, which is not good. And I might end up having to take his padding out and rewash him again anyway, because he's probably going to smell a little musty now, like he sat with water in him for a bit. Which is not great. These are little yuckies. we'll see. We'll see once when he's fully dry how he smells. Because he hasn't been wet so long that I'm worried about him having mold growth or anything like that. But it's kind of the case of I forgot to, you know, put the washing in the dryer type deal, where it's like it's just been wet long enough that you know it's going to smell a little funky. But I don't know if it's a little funky that a tiny bit of fursuit spray can't fix, or funky that I should probably just rewash the entire suit and dry him off better, you know? Like, yeah, but this is the piece I'm talking about for the inner part of the muzzle. And I find that that also makes it a lot easier to line later on, rather than carving out the muzzle, because you get a lot more of a consistent shape. And that makes life a lot easier, if you ask me. I prefer additive carving and not subtractive carving. Mostly because I use scissors. I don't have a big ass saw or anything like that to cut through foam. I know some people use like those cheap turkey carvers to cut through foam sometimes, which I think is very silly. But I have scissors and a box cutter, and already cutting through 1 inch is a hassle, so I can only imagine cutting through like an 8-inch block or a 4-inch block. And I'm also just the kind of person who prefers to make my bases over buying pre-made ones if I can manage it, you know. Don't get me wrong, pre-made ones look freaking dope. Like, there's some cool ass bases out there. So I'm like, oh, that'd be so fun to make a suit on. But also, it's a bit of pride for me to be like, yeah, I made absolutely everything on the suit from the bottom up. Like, I made the base, I made the eye blanks, I made, you know, everything. I fully lined it myself. Sublimated my own eye mesh, drew my own eye mesh. All that sort of stuff, you know, like it's just... It's just a point for me more than anything else. But I do like when I get a commission. Because it has happened a couple times where someone has commissioned me and like, oh, well, can I get one with a West Customs base, or can you make a suit but with a different base? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. My only stipulation with using specifically with foam bases, is that if I'm going to use someone else's foam base, I still want to use my eye blanks, because I feel like the eyes on my suits are what make my suits. You know, that eye shape and that pattern is what makes my suit my suit. I'm a little less tedious when it comes to the actual patterning for the eye color design. Like, some people have asked me, hey, are you willing to purchase someone else's sublimated eye mesh to use in your eye blanks? And I'm like, if it fits, I have no problem. I just like being able to do it. Like, why was that one wet? I just like being able to do it myself, you know? But there is a point where it stops looking like a suit I made, and more like a suit that someone else somewhere made. And it stops being something I created, and it just feels more like a DIY kit you bought from Lowe's and then put together. You know, which isn't to say I didn't put in work, but it's just not the same, you know, as doing all of it, if I can. Like, I am not good at 3D modeling, but I would argue that my eye blanks are fairly simple, because it's pretty much a circle with a corner. They were fairly easy to learn. That's when I was learning how to model, so that was pretty easy to figure out. It took me about a week to make the 3.0 models, where they actually are smoothed instead of a sharp edge. But that's just because Blender is annoying, and I still am not good at using Blender, and I still don't know half of the things for how to use it and actually do Blender stuff. I need to like get a college course on it, honestly. Which one of these days I might pay for a Blender course, just so that way I could, because like I've tried watching tutorials to learn it, which is how I learn most things that I do, including a lot of the fursuit stuff, is I watch a tutorial that explains it, and then I'll watch 6 more if I still don't get it, and usually, eventually, I get it. But it's just one of those things where even if I take notes while watching these, and I follow along on Blender as they're doing the thing, I still end up with something where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. You know, like I don't have a clue. But I would like to make a 3D model of a fursuit head in my style. And then possibly, depending, I'd have to look more into it. It's been years. But I would love to have a master mold for like a generic canine base or some sort. In my style, specifically for cases like this, where we want 2 suits that look identical. And also just because it creates a smoother base overall, I feel like a perfectly symmetrical smooth base. I'm not a big fan of 3D printed head bases. I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with them. I just personally don't like them for myself. Just because I find they're heavy and they're stiff and they kind of hurt to wear from my experience. Especially since a lot of the 3D printed head bases are moving jaw bases. Which isn't to say you have to do them as moving jaws, but most of them are. And then with like PLA and stuff, you end up with the issue where the older it gets, the more brittle the PLA itself gets, which is a common issue with eye blanks, because a lot of eye blanks are 3D printed, and while they last quite a while, eventually they do get brittle, and they do yellow, and so on and so forth. I like them for skull dogs, because I feel like that's the best way to make a skull dog, is 3D printing. I know some people do resin. I've heard mixed reviews between both 3D printed and resin skull dogs. Mostly with teeth, because small parts are going to be weaker than the larger flat surfaces on the head. That's just a given. I feel like even in regular foam fursuits, teeth and tongues and stuff like that are parts that just kind of break or fall out, you know, compared to the rest of the suit. Like, I'm not saying that's something a suit should do, but if a part is going to fail in a fursuit head, that's usually it. You know, you drop your suit, it hits something hard, and then the teeth chip. Or a seam pops, or who knows, you know. Especially since a lot of the upholstery fursuits, the foam suits, still use 3D printed teeth. I prefer to use 3D printed teeth in my suits because I think it looks better than plush teeth. Takes up less space while giving you the same kind of vibe. And quite frankly, I just hate sewing teeth. So much so that I now have my embroidery machine do it for me. Because I am not. I'm sick and tired of trying to sew teeth on my home sewing machine. It doesn't like it, and I don't like it, so we'll let the embroidery machine handle it. Does it use more fabric? Yes. Is that unfortunate? Also yes. But it doesn't really, because for the amount of times that I've gone to sew teeth and have had to completely scrap the fabric I'm using because the machine just ate it, is too many times to count. I'd rather have some decent scraps left over that I can maybe save than useless scraps that are just getting wasted because I had to make the same set of teeth 6 times over. I just don't like doing... I just don't like fabric teeth, which is why I charge more for plush teeth than 3D printed teeth, because 3D printed teeth print within an hour and I have them. Plush teeth do not. But you know, that's the way it goes. It is what it is. Would you stop? And I think today I am just going to finish up these muzzles, like at least getting them glued together, because it is already almost 5:30, and I think by the time I'm done with them it'll be almost 6. So I doubt we're going to get too much further today as far as these suits go. Well, yeah. And hopefully I'll be able to show you guys what I mean when I talk about these funky little skinny pieces for the muzzles. Because I feel like I still haven't explained them very well. But once I get them cut out and glued together, I can kind of show you guys what exactly I'm talking about. And then if we look at the photo in the corner, you can kind of see on their mouths, it does like that little, in the middle of their mouth. I'm going to try and replicate that. It is something on Patch. Patch's mouth does that, and it does it quite well. But Patch's mouth is also freaking huge in comparison. Like, his muzzle is just really long and really big compared to the rest of his head, which makes him look a lot less like a coyote and much more like your generic canine. His 2.0 looks nothing like his 1.0, despite the fact that his 2.0 muzzle was patterned directly off of his 1.0 muzzle, which is ironic to say the least. But we're trying so hard. Come on, there you go. And this is also why I haven't opened up commissions yet again for this year. Normally I do open up commissions a little bit towards the end of the year, generally like October-ish, because I only book a few months out. So usually once every few months I'll book a commission or two. This is not the case for me. This is not the case this year because we're doing this instead, and I wanted to give myself the time to do both suits with all of the extras I wanted to do in them before MCFC, because I did not want to have to con crunch, which knowing me, is going to end up being the case anyway. Just because that's how it seems to always go, is, oh, I don't know if I can do it in time. And then, what do you know, it's a week before the con, and 2 days before it, it's done. You know, like, it's very silly, but it's also very stressful, and it's kind of annoying, not gonna lie. I'm also going to try out some new techniques for smoothing bases, because I've heard you can get a pilling tool, a fabric shaver, some people call them, and use it to actually kind of smooth out the edges, because you get all these little points and tips on your base, and if you press firmly, I've heard that it will actually help smooth out a foam head base. I don't know how well it works, but that's what I've heard. So I'm going to get one of those soon to see if that actually helps or not. And if it does, that'll be something I do as the standard form for my head bases. Because I have noticed that while the smoothness of your head base does impact the smoothness of your shave. You can have the smoothest shave in the world, but if your head base is a little lumpy underneath that, your fur is just going to be a little lumpy. Even if the shave is even, if the base is not, it's not going to look good in those spots, which is unfortunate. And since I don't want to have to sand a fursuit head, I get enough fuzzies and dust in here as it is. I don't need more. I don't need more microplastics. I feel like I'm just not going to get a base that smooth with my scissors, no matter how hard I try. So instead, we're going to attempt with the foam shaver to smooth out those rougher edges on these suits. And then another thing I'm going to do, because they are symmetrical, and since they are going to be identical, my plan is to brain hole. My plan is to lose my train of thought. I'm going to pattern half of one face and use it for both heads. So that way both heads are not only symmetrical with themselves and each side's identical, but so that way each head is identical, because you can compress foam all you want, which is why it's also good to take the smaller side of the heads. So whichever head has the smallest, smoothest side, that's the one that's going to get patterned at the end of the day. And then of course another big thing is getting the actual dome of the head to fit nice. Which is sometimes easier than others. In this case, I have a very tiny head. My head is actually smaller than the Ed head, so I can pattern it directly to the shape of the Ed head. Same goes for this one. And then because they're both doing a zipper in the back of the head, I don't have to necessarily worry about making room under the jaw, because a lot of times you want to go straight down from the jaw if you don't, in order to get room for glasses. Because I do wear glasses. I'm not wearing them right now because I'm crazy and I don't know where I put them. But I do wear glasses. I am blind as a bat right now. So I can actually taper that in a little bit, because we will have the zippers to get in and out. And I won't have to worry about it so much. Because like a big issue is you don't want to go straight down, and then that just kind of looks sad. So coming in a little bit does help, but it does also make it harder to get in and out of suits. Personally, I like to be able to just pull them on and off and on and off without having to fiddle with the zipper. But we're solely doing the zipper for the sake of the electronics that are going to go in the heads, because that will make it so much easier to access them. Because they will have to be removed for washing and stuff, because we cannot waterproof an Arduino, unfortunately. At least I don't know how to. And it's much easier to just make it removable than to find a way to permanently waterproof an Arduino in a fursuit head, or the LEDs. I do know they make waterproof LEDs. I do know that's a thing. That is not what we're doing, though. Because we've already planned to have them set up in such a way that they are going to be fully removable relatively easily. Which will also make maintenance in general a lot easier, because you'll be able to replace any LED strips that go bad, you'll be able to replace any bad wiring, receivers, transceivers, all that good stuff. The only difficult part is that there's also going to be electronics in the hands, which does mean I'm also going to have to work on the hand paws kind of along the same time that I'm working on the head, which will be an interesting thing. But you can see, like, this is the muzzle, right? You'll have another piece that looks identical to this, but this way, so when we stack them together, it'll be enclosed. But this way, the inside of your muzzle is hollow, without having to carve out crazy shapes. Except somebody was a dummy-dumb and traced 4 of the same shape. We're going to go like this with this one, because that one tapers the other direction. There we go. It doesn't really matter much, but it matters enough that I bother with it, because, good lord, you know. It just helps with keeping the muzzles even, because if you don't, they really, really like to slant otherwise, is what I found. Like, I found that, like, you'll get one side muzzle that's really big, and then the other one's kind of like this, so then you get, like, this slanted angle on your muzzle. And even if you carve this one down, you usually can only carve so far before it just looks weird, and then it's not the same muzzle anymore, and it's awful, you know, like. So I usually don't bother. But I made my muzzles funky anyway, so what do I know? And then this is gonna be about halfway. I still feel like that's really long, because even if we go, I don't know if this is too long or not. They are going to get carved, but that's not necessarily going to make them shorter. Worst case scenario, I draw a couple lines, I lop the muzzles, I cut off the excess and glue them back on. Because I might shorten them by like ½ an inch if I decide I don't like their overall shape. Because ultimately, there is going to be a full inch coming forward here. So then, what you're really going to see is this much muzzle, which I don't think is bad. And then that's going to be like that. Oh, the cheeks. We'll find out. I don't know. I don't know yet. I don't know if these are or aren't the vibes I want. I didn't make a side profile on my reference sheets, which I'm now considering that maybe I should have for this suit, because I made them a little bit different than I normally make suits. Then I normally make reference sheets, I should say. So. Trying my best over here. As I told my mother the other day, I am the most unprofessional professional you'll ever know. Do I get paid to do this professionally? Yes. Do I really know what I'm doing on, like, an expertise scale? I don't think so. Like, I am by no means a seamstress, and I am by no means, like, I don't have a degree in fursuit making or anything like that. Like, I have not been educated in costuming or costume making in any way, shape, or form. I just put shit together. which I feel like is also how a lot of the professional cosplayers go about it. And they're still considered professional. Like, I get paid for it. It is my job. I do, in fact, run a business called Dog Roll. Professional, I feel like that counts, but oh my god. You know, it's like, it's really weird being a full-time fursuit maker, because it's like I'm a professional of making big fluffy carpets that people wear, but there's no real, it's not like coding or like manufacturing of any sort, where there's standards in place per se. Like, we don't really have standard. The best we have for standards in suits is, hey, don't leave pins in them, and maybe don't put metal shards or rat poop in them. Like, that's, keep them clean and keep them not sharp. Make sure they don't kill people. That's pretty much it. There's no real, like, standard for how a suit should be made. Whereas, like, because it's not tailored in the same way that normal costumes are tailored, or even normal clothing is tailored, it is so much different. Like, can I hem a pair of pants? Kind of. Not well, but damn it, if those legs are too long, I sure can make them shorter. Is it gonna be pretty? Nobody's looking at your ankles, girl. You're fine. Like, I'm just here. I'm just doing things. Don't ask me. I don't know. It really is an experience. I'll say that for sure. And I do, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love doing what I do. It is my favorite thing. That's why I make it my, you know, like, that's why I'm doing this project, is because I love making fursuits. But I will also say, I don't fucking know. Yeah, there we go. We got that nice little taper now. Good shit, good shit. I just also want to make sure. So this ledge, actually, this little tooth that I have going on here, is actually very important for how I build my suits. Because this is where I glue the teeth to on the inside of the upper jaw. Because without that ledge, it's a whole thing, and like it can be done, but it's way more tedious. So I really want to make sure that we have this nice flat spot to put the 3D printed teeth up into later. And then now, I cut that one a little bit taller, but it's okay. It's a lot a bit taller though. Okay. How's that? God damn it, me. Why did I have to do that? Okay. And then if I compare it to, say, this one, which is also definitely shorter, son of a bitch. And then if I compare this one to this one, yeah, so we're just going to bring that little inner corner up on all of them. And then just because I know I'm going to need to later anyway, I'm going to cut, just bevel that, you know? Because it's easier to do it now than to do it later, when I have both halves and then they're in the way of each other and it's a whole thing. And that'll just help smooth the transition from inside to outside. Doesn't really serve any other purpose than that, but, you know, I want it to look good. And this is where we start getting into the hard part of the suits, is like making them look good while also making them identical, because like that whole tapering brought up that shape probably a bit more than I actually wanted it to, but, you know, like, we're going to carve this and all of that anyway, so yeah. Anyway, we are certainly the vibing. There we go. There we go. And then this is another one of those spots where the glue likes to detach sometimes, just because it didn't soak in nice, and it didn't adhere as well as I'd like. But it's one of those spots where it's like, oh, well, that's not a problem, because I just, and it's all better, problem solved. Especially once when the fur and the lining go on, because it kind of wraps all the way around the shape pretty snug. So it's not really an issue. And then we're just going to try to make this as smooth of a shape as possible. Like, it doesn't matter if the inside's entirely even, because nobody cares. It's not like you can see it that much. Like, even in suit, you don't really see it. But it sits, like, right here, so. And I know earlier we were talking about vision and blocking our vision. This is all going to get carved off until there's about an inch left. So it'll be straight up an inch, gone. And that's part of the carving for the muzzles, which, honestly, we are getting pretty close to 6 o'clock, and I am getting tired. I am hungry. It is my dinner time. And a friend of mine is going to be attempting to stream later, and I would like to be there for that. Yeah. So, wibbly wobbly. Pop, pop, poppity. I'm covered in little foam. That is another downside to fursuit making, is getting covered in the teeny tiny foam bits that just get everywhere as you're carving. I need to get a little garbage bag out to hold all my extra tiny useless pieces. But I will see everyone. I don't know if we're going to do another stream this week, to be honest with you. Because it is coming up on Thanksgiving. We do have family coming up to visit, stuff like that. So depending, I know we're not going to be doing one on Wednesday. Pretty sure we're not going to on Wednesday. Thursday, we might still stream. The odds are next week we're probably not going to stream much. I don't know about the rest of this week. We'll find out, I suppose. But if you'd like to keep helping support what I do, I recommend checking out my Patreon. There's different benefits for each tier. But for any of the tiers, you will get your name down on the bottom here. You can see scrolling by. So far, we have nobody because it's a new Patreon, and I haven't exactly advertised it much. But subscribing to the Patreon would help me immensely with doing more projects like this and doing more things like giveaways and the coloring books. I know a lot of people were very excited about us wanting to expand our coloring books because currently we have the canines and the felines. We're looking into doing like a bovine edition and a cervidae and wait. Yeah, that's the same thing. Corvids is what I meant. We want to do a trash animals pack. We want to do a mega book eventually once we get a bunch of editions and little mini travel book for our coloring books. All the good stuff, all the good things. But of course, that's very expensive to make and publish because I do draw all of the pictures for our coloring books, and it is self-publishing. So it costs about $500 for the initial run of coloring books, just to get them printed, not to mention actually doing all of the work to make all of the pages and the files that they need to print a coloring book. So it takes me well over a few months of work and, trial and error before an edition is finished. So I would really like if we could do more, and the Patreon helps support that. It helps support this, it helps support other big projects I want to do in the future. So if you guys are interested in helping support what I do, I recommend checking that out. Since it seems to just be me and Siri today, for the most part, we are not going to raid anybody today, just because I don't have anyone lined up, and there's not really anyone to raid with for the most part. But I will hopefully see you guys either Wednesday or Thursday this week before we pause for the holidays. So, bye-bye!